I have now the great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Hilary Koob-Sassen. Hilary Koob-Sassen is an artist living in London who has actually decided to perform with his experimental band, The Errorists, at the time where we have few movements. There is the new movement of the Errorists, announcing their error. The Errorists claim the liberty to make ambitious political and scientific proposals. And they've just launched actually their new third album, Faith in Infrastructure. A very warm welcome to Hilary Koob-Sassen and his manifesto, Faith in Infrastructure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am an errorist. I announce my error, but in exchange, I ask for liberty to practice being in time. Being in time terror has a suitably slow-rolling and tepid name. Global warming, finance crisis. Such tepid names are dangerous, but we errorists, we are syntactical elaborationists, here to give it a new name. Durability is traction on change. Durability is a measure of how closely the momentum of a structure's change navigates the actual contours of reality as they unfold in the ever-passing A genome undergoing natural selection is like a phrase constantly trying to name reality. Adaptation can be understood as the successful inclusion of experiences into that range of reality to which a lineage of creatures can respond. With the accumulation of shit, the artificial residues of life create evolutionary feedback, favoring the development of a materialism. Materialism's creature builds structures and then adapts to them. Eventually, the creature comes to fit so perfectly to the built structure that its success relies less upon the genetic evolution of its own body than upon the material elaboration of these built external organs. Elaboration moves along when structures subside from direct experience to a position of foundational relevance. The aqueducts have disappeared. We have faith in the subterranean pipes. Upon this faith, we buy a house. Upon this faith, we live in New Orleans. An evil experience is the same for the living and the built. The floods were outside of that range of reality to which the structure could respond. The levee breaks, and no hidden capacity reveals itself. No preternatural burst of adrenaline allows that slipping deer to spring to a foothold. No particularly well-fashioned piece of levee exceeds its nominal strength and endures no response. These two syntaxes, genetic and materialist, they must name reality faster than it changes. Otherwise, reality deletes them. At this, no. Yes. The elaborative trajectory from economies to organs is paracultural. It advances across the lifetimes of many cultures in the same way that evolution advances across the lifetimes of many creatures. Life builds and climbs its paracultural ladder up and out. Life seeks a divinely realistic structural solution to the constraints inherent in this scale of reality. Life seeks the exit of the cave. Life seeks to pierce the scalar pellicle and deposit itself outside, naked and quivering and blind and utterly alone, but on a new landscape of possible formations. These attempts are almost certain to fail, and yet the 5 instances of success, the 5 instances of a culture of one scale, successfully attaining the next. These are the 5 major punctuations of biological history. In the original big mineral mud puddle between the mountains, a culture of replicating molecules managed to arrange itself into the first virus. The rampant protein trading of a culture of viruses managed to formalize its capital city into the first ever bacteria. And now a virus can't really live outside a city. A rampant culture of bacteria, orgiastically plunging in and out of each other. Amidst this, the origination of single cells with organelles. A culture of single cells, refining and specializing economy in a place for not so many millennia, finally came to carve place into body and become the first multicellular organism. Cultures of all scales follow a historical template to a predictable outcome. Once a foundational traction on time has been established, life scrambles to pile up an ascent to traction on scale. Life tries to leap from the pile before the changes brought about by the pile-up conspire to bring the pile down. The further an elaborating culture, structure, or evolving body cantilevers out from a foundational capacity, the more susceptible to foundational change it becomes. The power of high elaboration lies in its ability to abstract, in its ability to attend to non-foundational things, precisely because it has placed so much faith in its foundation. For a highly elaborated culture structure, experiencing a collapsing faith in foundation, there are only 3 strategies. The anticipatory reversion to rudimentary form, death in abstract splendor, or an attempt to exit the cave and be the birth of the next scale, to hold that fruiting endpoint present to the mind, present to the highest abstract powers of culture, present perhaps to the arts. Before organific economics 101 and how to be paracultural, it is extremely important for me to refresh my errorist credential and for you to sharpen your criticality to an axe-murdering edge. I long for that chop, for I am in no way convinced of what I propose, but I am very committed to proposing it. So, how do we be paracultural? How do we take on the trajectory of life consciously as our own? I propose an exit from the Latin mass of biology. I propose this curvaceously updated old god life. We need a new word game and a direct relationship with the god mass. We must not confuse development and origination. To say a nation develops is to imply that a highly perfected map of some final fruiting structure exists within that nation, that it merely awaits that set of experiences, a mother, to allow it to unfurl its perfection. In actual fact, the main work at hand is to find out what, if anything, could be astutely considered analogous to DNA, to its syntactical structure, and to its meaning. I will tell you what I think, almost definitely wrong. No structure song is complex enough to be sung into world body except that standard human set of organs. In that garden, 4 billion cells schizophrenically sing in unity a single human consciousness. That system is the only song complex enough for us each to sing it together. The translational diversity of our minds and the universal sameness of our bodies. Maybe. But definitely and for sure, embryonic development is not evolution. It is a highly refined process product of evolution. And again, it is no guide for where we stand. Furthermore, evolution is over. Its time frame is so slow that it is no use to us. We are agents of extinction, but not of evolution. Far beyond all else, we are agents of elaboration. We are building a world body around ourselves, the first body of that scale. We are a scalar leap in complexity from the cell culture that built the first body, and yet that is our closest analogy. We embrace the messy process of becoming, of first origination, and forget all ideas that we are some fully evolved thing in some stage of embryonic development. Instead, let us say the nation-state system is like a proto-organ insofar as it is a universally inclusive structure, as the organs of the body are universal to its cells. We must be rigorous in our science and also in our poetry. We must be pious and poetic scientists, performing exegesis on the analogy map of the experiences of other scales of culture. We must seek to be like the 5 cultures that push their art across cross the threshold between the built and the alive. Humanity stands inside a framework of its own creation. We have sung this paracultural ladder into existence. From a spore, from a way to navigate reality and endure, planting, irrigation, harvest unchanging, to a bridge, a materialism which supports the procession of humanity forward through time and changing hegemonic formulations. And now we have come to a more open place where things shake and start to break. We put our faith in multiplication of a new kind of structure, the web, the market, and the babos. The babos, which are like an unsatisfied hunger. The babos which long to be cathedrals. The babos which long to be proper investment vehicles. In elaborating global economies, we evoke world organs. How do we sing them into structure? We must be organific economists, seeking out new systems in the pattern of the plans, bailing out banks, sandbagging levies, and subsidies for ethanol must be characterized as thrashing about. An attempt to surmount an evil experience by rampantly generating small proposals in the hopes of developing a response. We must move from pushing sugar into overloaded liver and set out to formalize some lovely kidneys, solar seas, and roiling greens. We must advance the trajectory onwards from economies into organs. For example, the web is a global but not universal economy of information, but it evokes a world organ of meaning. The supernucleus of a rampant design democracy, a spherical, digital, Google cathedral, earth map mosaic flipped outside in. Inside 8 billions is incarnations are surveying the entirety of what could be. The overlapped transparencies of all humanity's dreams. So difference is detectable, but majority creates a denser line. Our syntax octopus of proposals and our pattern of the plans replaces the lack of plan and the invisible hand with a higher resolution name. High resolution in the sense of high informational density and in the sense of inspiring resolve to act. That is the organ which our unfinished web economy seeks to be. It is natural, but it is not inevitable. Organific Economics Equation 101 allows us to assess the GLD, the relative durability of a creature or a culture, or indeed the durability of all of life itself, the horsepower of its traction on change, the efficiency with which it advances into future experience. Life's durability is a function of the efficiency of its experiential metabolism and the domain of its activity. Life's metabolism its capacity to translate an experience into a foundation for further experiencing. How quickly and how absorbently, to how many of its constituents, to how much of itself can life present the opportunity to know and experience, develop a structural response, and then move that structure on down into the faith zone. Times, life's domain, the breadth and depth of matter to which and with which life can develop a response. How realistic is life's picture of reality, and how realistic is its materialism? Can we sculpt atoms, molecules, life forms, planets? Just about. But our over-cantilevered bridge cannot support a response to the warming water below. It cannot frame the sky as organs. It suffers an unjustified faith in infrastructure. We must hope that we cannot design the world organs themselves. We must pray that they will be too complex. We can only build a structure to support them and leave the sky open for their growth explosion. We can transform our bridge into a trellis, a rangitta, a growth grid. We can cease to progress and shift to focus on ascent. With our ancient, extracted, refined and recombined modernista materialismus, we can build the structures that will support the new materialism, the materialism of a garden of organs on earth, which will be lush if we make it good handholds. We must be furious builders of structures which scream no to progress as such. Steady machine gun perfection, tempered steel bridges that are forever, that life can get to know like bones and climb around. Life seeks to mount the built trellis, to climb up and out into the cosmos. Life seeks to climb the square god of culture and manifest the next round god of life. Life seeks to bring all of itself into itself. Life seeks that starving mental Jordan genius, starving in the desert. Life screams for her to help it explosively reorganize the moon. The moon, that ancient image of the exit of the cave. Life longs to devastate its simplicity with rampant green complexity, to unleash its viral hordes on the helpless dusts of Venus, to suck the iron out of Saturn. If we are to be paracultural, that is the war we must take up. Sneaky life launched its attack in a province of the cosmos. Sneakily it worked a seam between the atoms and the planets. And now through we, so super fancy, we are a frilly life, fractal complexity. We must dance out on the palette of the desert. We must dance the lack of life into complexity. We must finally conquer this damned shifting stone which threatens to chuck life off like some clinging skin to rub it off on the sun. We must conquer the world for life and claim its next domain. We must conquer the world for life and claim its next domain. Thank you.